Hi, I'm Jack, and I'm 48 years old. Just in the last 18 months, started my transition from female to male. I'm a female to male transgender person, and so I identify as male. Sometimes I forget that I went to a girls' high school. So when you're talking about history, it's like, oh yeah, blah blah. And sometimes I'm halfway, three quarters of the way through a story, and then I realize it's going to be a really rubbish story at the end because I can't say I went to a girls' high school. Um, so yeah, there's stuff that happens all the time. Throughout most of my life, I always identified as more masculine, much more masculine, and well, once I hit puberty, that kind of became not really traumatic, but it became more difficult for me to like myself, and for me, it created anxieties about being out in public. Um, uh, Instances of violence as well, that homophobic violence, because I identified as a lesbian, and I was a masculine identified lesbian. Using the women's toilets became a real huge deal. I'll explain it like this. So, if I was in a bathroom, before I walked through the door into the women's toilets, I would go, okay, I hope there's no one at the sink. I hope there's no one at the sink. I hope there's no one at the sink. Or I hope there's no woman about to walk out of the toilets. And then I would rush into a cubicle. And then I would wait until I knew people had left the sink area. And then I would hope that I'd try and wash my hands really quickly. I'd never dry them because it took too long. And I'd try and get out of there very quickly. So that's quite a lot of anxiety in terms of something that's just every day that most people don't give much thought to. That ends up becoming a really big deal. Um, yeah, so if you think about that over tw- what 40 years, that's a lot of anxiety. Yeah, when I was about 32, so probably not that long ago. For me, I got to the point where I did attempt to take my own life. For me, it felt like I was never going to fit. I would never fit anywhere. So when I did attempt to do that, to attempt suicide, I the biggest thing I got out of that, and I would say, don't wait until you're going to do that. Speak to somebody. Because the thing I didn't do was tell anybody. So, and what happens is it becomes huge in your head. It's just your own voice swinging around in circles, and you'll never find a door out of there like that. Without talking to somebody and without going through what is happening for you, you can't stop those thoughts. I have a great GP who's fantastic as well. Um, and also a therapist that I see sometimes. I haven't seen her for a while, but if ever an occasion arises, I make an appointment. The best thing about that is we can't do everything on our own. We know it doesn't work. History tells us it doesn't work. A friend actually gave me a recommendation of someone that was good, and I contacted that office, and it was a psychiatrist at the time, um, and he was fantastic. I guess strangely we didn't talk about gender. So it kind of sounds a bit silly maybe, but in a way it didn't occur to me that I could do something physically about it. A lot of people don't want surgery, but some people do, and some people need it to feel better about themselves. And for me, that was a really important moment. And, that involved having chest surgery or a double mastectomy. And hours after that, when I woke up, I felt amazing. I went, they're gone. I feel even with all that, trust me, it was day surgery. It's not comfortable. Even with all that pain and everything, I thought, wow. I felt like my life had completely changed at that moment. If a young person came to me and said they weren't sure where they fitted in terms of gender identity, or they weren't comfortable with their identifier at birth and their physical body, firstly I would talk to them about linking in with some services. So especially someone to talk to. So, great places like Beyond Blue, but also for a young person, Headspace. And I would also get people to talk to other trans people in the community. I'd actually accessed Beyond Blue in the past. I've actually accessed them via a website. And in particular, I looked at the Man Therapies part of the website, which I thought was really great. And, you do an online quiz and, all that was great information. And also that leads you into what other services you can find. I still can have times where I feel, fairly low, but the difference is now I call someone. I make contact, even with a mate, but if I really feel I need to talk to someone, that's what I do. I contact my counsellor, and that's the thing that helps. I still take, I just take a small dose of an antidepressant, which works for the anxiety. And other things I do is I try and get enough sleep. I don't use illicit substances or alcohol. But that doesn't mean I don't have fun, because I have plenty of fun. Sure, there are societal things, there are complications, there's problems with phone banking with a very deep voice. But on the other side of that, if you go to bed liking yourself and waking up in the morning and essentially liking who you are and knowing who you are a bit more, then everything else is much, much easier to deal with. Because the essential bit is who I am.